All the hidden glances, all the stolen moments led to one powerful moment when they saw me, and the world shifted in an instant. I had followed them, hiding in plain sight, but when they saw me, really saw me, the connection was undeniable. It was a day of invisible presence until that one moment when their gaze met mine, and everything I thought I knew was turned upside down. I had been a quiet observer, waiting for the perfect moment, but when they finally noticed me, I realized it was no longer just a game. Following them was a secret, a quiet thrill, until that single moment when everything I felt was exposed for them to see. I stayed in the shadows, watching them all day, and when they turned around and finally saw me, it felt like the universe had shifted. It was a day of quiet tension until the moment their eyes locked with mine, and I knew things would never be the same. All I wanted was to stay hidden, but when they finally saw me, it was like everything I had been feeling burst to the surface. I followed them all day, a silent witness to their world, and when they turned to face me, it felt like my whole reality shifted. It was a long day of waiting, of watching, until the moment when they noticed me, and nothing felt the same after that. The day had been filled with silent anticipation, and then, when they saw me, everything I felt came rushing to the forefront. Every step I took was calculated, but when they finally looked at me, everything changed in a way I never expected. I had been following them for hours, waiting, hoping, and when they saw me, it felt like a spark ignited between us. The thrill of being unnoticed was gone the moment they turned and saw me, and in that instant, everything I felt was laid bare. For a whole day, I was just a shadow, waiting for the moment they'd notice, and when they did, I could feel the tension in the air. I thought I could remain invisible, but when they looked at me, it felt like everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same. I had been watching from the sidelines, a quiet observer, but when they finally saw me, it felt like a new chapter had begun. All day long, I stayed just out of sight until that one moment when they saw me and everything I felt came rushing out. It started as a simple game of observation, but when they finally noticed me, everything I thought I knew changed forever. I had been carefully following them, trying to remain unseen, but when they saw me, the truth between us was impossible to ignore. The whole day felt like a build-up, a crescendo of emotion, until that one moment when everything I felt was exposed. I thought I was just another face in the crowd, but when they finally noticed me, it was like the world shifted beneath my feet. The suspense had been building all day, and when their eyes locked with mine, it felt like the moment everything changed. I had been following them, waiting for my chance, but when they finally saw me, it was as if the world stopped moving. Each step I took, closer and closer, my heart pounded until the moment they noticed, and I knew nothing would be the same again. I stayed in the background, waiting, hoping they'd sense my presence. When they finally did, the air between us felt electrified. A day full of anticipation led to one pivotal moment when their gaze found me. And suddenly, everything felt more real than ever before. For hours, I was just another face in the crowd. But when they looked up and saw me, the connection was undeniable. The excitement of being unnoticed was thrilling, but when they finally turned to face me, everything shifted in the blink of an eye. I followed them through every crowd, every street, until that moment when they finally noticed me and everything I had been hiding was exposed. It was like a game of hide and seek until the moment they looked at me, and in that instant, everything I'd been feeling came rushing out. Every passing second was a rush, a mixture of fear and anticipation. But when they saw me, I realized it was worth every moment. I thought I could stay hidden forever, but when they noticed me, it felt like the world had suddenly become clear. Hours of quietly following them had led to this moment when everything I had been feeling was finally seen, and the truth was undeniable. I stayed just out of their sight, watching closely until that one moment when their gaze caught mine and everything changed. The longer I followed them, the more the suspense grew, and when they finally saw me, it was a moment I would never forget. I had been a silent observer, but when they finally turned around, everything I'd kept inside was laid bare in that one glance. For a whole day, I was invisible, just a shadow in their life, until they looked up and saw me, and I could feel everything change. I followed my crush for an entire day, watching every move, every glance, and when they finally noticed, I was trembling with excitement and fear. A day of silent stalking, blending into the crowd, and then the moment came and everything changed. They had no idea I was there, shadowing their every step. But when the truth came out, it felt like time stopped. Every second was a thrill, every corner a challenge, and when they turned and saw me, my heart skipped a beat. I was invisible, like a ghost in their world, until that one pivotal moment. That was when everything turned upside down. For hours, I stayed hidden, my heart pounding, waiting for the moment they'd finally notice. And when they did, everything was different. The whole day felt like a game of cat and mouse. They never saw me, but I was right there, following their every move. My breath caught in my throat as I stayed just out of reach, but when their eyes finally met mine, the air between us changed forever. I couldn't help but follow them, hoping they might sense my presence. When they finally did, it was the most intense moment of my life. It was like a scene from a movie, the tension building with every passing minute, and when they turned to face me, everything I'd been holding back burst out. I thought I was just another shadow, but when their gaze found mine, the world seemed to freeze in that one unforgettable moment. The entire day felt like a secret mission, but when they noticed, it was as if the universe had conspired to bring us together at last. I stayed just far enough to be invisible, but when they finally caught sight of me, I knew everything was about to change. The thrill of being unnoticed, of blending in with the crowd, was intoxicating until the exact moment they turned and saw me. I followed them for hours, my mind racing with what ifs, until finally their eyes met mine, and the whole world shifted. Every moment was a game, a dance between the two of us, until the day I couldn't keep hiding any longer. I thought I was invisible, just a passerby in their life, but then they looked right at me, and nothing was ever the same. Following them was a rush, a mixture of fear and excitement, until that single moment when everything came to a head. It was like they were unaware of my presence, until the moment when everything became painfully clear. And in that instant, I was seen. For a whole day, I was a ghost in their life, until that one moment when they saw me standing there, and nothing could turn back time. I thought I could go unnoticed, but then, in 1 second, their eyes met mine. The connection was instant, and my heart raced. The tension had been building all day long, but when they finally saw me, it felt like an electric charge running through the air. It was a quiet day of following in their footsteps, but when the silence shattered, everything I thought I knew about them changed. I felt like a shadow trailing behind them until that one moment when the world seemed to pause and everything between us shifted. All day, I stayed in the background, waiting for the perfect moment, and when it arrived, my heart was caught in a whirlwind of emotion. The thrill of following them, unnoticed, was one thing, but when they finally saw me, it was a game changer. I had followed them without a word for hours, but when they turned around and met my gaze, the silence spoke louder than anything else. There was a rush in being hidden, a thrill in being unseen, but when they noticed, I felt everything I've been holding back come flooding out. For one whole day, I moved like a shadow, but when they looked up and saw me, I felt exposed in the most beautiful way. The tension built all day like an invisible string between us, and when they finally noticed me, everything snapped into place. It started as a secret, an unspoken bond between us, but the moment they noticed, everything changed. I followed them carefully, each step calculated until that one moment when they turned and saw me. And I swear, time stood still. I had been a silent observer for hours, but when they finally turned to face me, all I could feel was the raw truth between us. The thrill of being unnoticed was overwhelming, but when their gaze finally met mine, it was like the world exploded into color. I moved like a whisper through their life, barely seen, until that one moment when they noticed me, and nothing was the same. The day was full of hidden glances, secret moments, until they turned and saw me, and everything I felt was laid bare. It had been a day of careful observation, but when they looked at me, it felt like everything had changed in an instant. I was an invisible spectator to their life until the moment they saw me, and in that instant, all my feelings flooded to the surface.